views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Hey, everybody. I bet you thought we were not going to be on today. Did you think that because we were a few minutes late? That's me. I'm trying to push all the right buttons here. You know, technology is an amazing thing, and it's kind of like our little recipe. And so you just got to figure out, like, wait a minute, is there a reason that you put the baking soda in the cake? Yeah, probably. I'm not a baker. I'm Dr. Pat. I'm the host of the Dr. Pat Show. And about 7 years ago, we created Transformation Talk Radio. I'm here with my sidekick, Mr. Benny. Today, shout out to WBOQ and Chris and the guys out there. A big hello to all of you. Fabulous seminar going on in Rhode Island this upcoming weekend. It's amazing, actually. Yeah, love it. Westerly right on the water, Seattle on the water, all of you, wherever you are. The Spirituality of Age, A Seeker's Guide to Growing Older by Dr. Robert Weber and Dr. Carol Orsborn. And here's what does this even mean? The spirituality of age. And so this is really very, very cool. Because when we kind of step out in life, we kind of look at ourselves and we think, well, you know, I got my best years are over here, my other years are over here, and I'm not quite sure what to do with the rest of them. Well, there's something new and different happening. And what's new and different about what's happening is this idea that many of us get to reinvent ourselves. We get to look at our lives. You know, we look beyond what used to be called midlife. You know, it's a whole different way of approaching the best part of who we can be and how we can contribute. That's what for many of you, that's what I'm trying to say here. You know, this is really a conversation today and a fabulous book that they've put together, The Spirituality of Age. You know, A Seeker's Guide to Growing Older. You know, I had an Italian background, and, you know, growing up, it was always a conversation about the wine. You know, it was always a conversation about, you know, how things age and what it takes for something to age and what happens when it does age. And I remember my grandfather and my grandmother always talking about, you know, the age of cheese, for example. And I remember the conversations about what that means and what the process was and what the importance was. And, you know, today in the world that we live in is fast-paced pop culture that would have you believe that if you're not a size 2 and you're not 20 years old, you have nothing to offer in life. But we now know and have always known that there is something different. And so we're thrilled to have Dr. Carol Orsborn joining us here today, as well as Dr. Robert Weber. They are the author of the book, The Spirituality of Age, and of course, they're much more. So today we're going to talk with them, and we're going to talk with what this means to even have a level of degree of awareness of the spirituality of age. Welcome to you both. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I want to just talk for a minute about both of you. And you know, I didn't do a very in-depth introduction of who you are, all your credentials and everything, you know, that you've done in life, because I'm really interested in how each of you has gotten to this part of your journey where you've come to this place to realize that this is even an important conversation to have in the world today. You know, what part of what you do today did you learn along the way? And what are some of the lessons each of you learned to bring the spirituality of age to the forefront? Who'd like to go first? Dr. Carol?
Sure. And that's a big question. So I'd like to start it with just how Bob and I met, because we were at the American Society of Aging in 2011, if I have that correct, and Bob had just presented on contemplaging, which was a combination of contemplative living and aging. And I had presented on adult development. And we met in a stairwell and realized that we were both teaching and thinking about things that were very against the mainstream, not only of general society, but of even the American Society of Aging.
And what did you come to around that?
Well, go ahead, Bob.
Well, what we wound up talking, and we discovered that we both had a lot of questions. We were grappling with our own aging. I'm a first-year baby boomer, so born in 1946.
Yeah. Carol's
not far behind. And, we were aware here in this context of the American Society of Aging that we were getting older. And I had already been pursuing this course of thinking about aging and how to integrate several dimensions of my own personal and professional life, aging and mental health. I'm a clinical psychologist, and spirituality. And we discovered that we had many of the same questions. And Carol said to me at the end of our conversation on the stairwell, you said,
okay, I'm on the spot there, Carol. There we go. That's what I'm saying, right?
Well,
let's keep talking.
I had a big question, which was, I think, a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of your listeners are grappling with, which was, I'm at the peak of my career, my abilities, my life. Do I owe it to society to keep on doing what, between you and me, I'm a little bit tired of doing? Or do I have the right to pull back and develop my inner life, my spiritual life? And I expected Bob to have the answer, and instead he looked at me and he said, me too. So we were off and running, realizing that, we're the kind of people that like to challenge the norms. And, of course, we're all challenging the norm of aging as being a time of depression and withdrawing and decline. I'm sure we're all on that same page. But I think where Bob and I in this book really differ from the mainstream, and it may surprise you and some of your listeners, is that we also depart from what is called in gerontological circles activity theory. The idea that we need to be running around and continuing to improve ourselves and fulfilling our potential. Bob and I we're both having an urge to just sort of like take a step back and not call it withdrawal or depression, but rather call it development of our own spiritual lives without judgment that we were doing something that was somehow not successfully aging.
Yeah. I love what we're talking about here. And as a matter of fact, we're going to skip this first break because it's a big conversation. For many of us that, have kind of hobbled along asking this question, really, and you ask it in the book right in the beginning. It's like, how shall I live? And, what I talk about a lot, maybe both of you can comment on this, is that sometimes, regardless of how old we are, regardless of, what our health has looked like in the past, we happen to stumble upon something that we love to do. And we stumble upon it, and for a minute, we think, this is like coming home. Then the next minute, it's like, oh my goodness, really? You're going to do that? You're not going to do this other thing that the million, gazillion other people are doing to earn a living. And we enter into a moment of doubt. Now, I want to say this, and then I'd like to ask both of you. For me, my room to breathe was not because I had the wherewithal and what you talk about in this amazing book. It's because I got really, really sick in that moment of doubt. And so for me, I happened to get stuck doing something I loved. Now, a gift.
That's wonderful.
What a gift. But not everybody's so lucky about that, right?
Right. I think we get stuck in what we do, but I think what Carol alluded to earlier about the inner life, I think that's what we're pushing toward. We spend a lot of time doing, the things we do well. We try to acquire the things that we find value in. We love it when people say, hey, that Dr. Pat is great, or Carol or Bob are great people. And yet sometimes that's just not enough. And I think what we need to do is really become more human beings. We spend our lives being human doings.
Yeah.
And somehow the blend. I think from having read a little bit that I was a Jesuit. And
yep.
One of the things about being a Jesuit is that you try to discover the spiritual in all things, to discover God in all things, including aging. And I think that is what we are trying to do. But in the process, you not only discover God, but you discover who you really are and what you really want to be and do as a result. And that's a big part of what we're trying to encourage here in the book.
It's really interesting. I was reading about you, Bob, of course, both of you actually, and there was something that I wrote down as I was reading the book. And I started to read this, I started to cry. And I think you were thanking your dad, especially for, seeding gifts of gratitude, forgiveness, right?
Absolutely.
And you said something like tears in my young heart, and the spirit of perpetual childlikeness. And I read this, and then you went on to talk about your mom, and and then the book is so grounded in what you say about those beginnings, and Carol, you as well. To say thank you for people who give you life, heart, and words wings. And this is really the kind of way you start this book as co-authors of this book, in a deep bedded energy of gratitude. Now, here's my question, because we are talking about the spirituality of aging, which is almost like an oxymoron for people. The whole idea of, wait a minute, spirituality of aging, I'm aging. What's so spiritual about that? Isn't this really inviting people to open up to a conversation about possibilities regardless of what age we are? And, there's some people that are 40 and think their life is over. Many of us were way beyond the 40. We're in our Medicare years. And so we're thinking about, wait a minute, maybe at 40 I did think that. But is the world really at my fingertips? And I'd love for each of you to talk about that.
Well, let me just jump right in, because what we're saying is that older age, and I'm talking about beyond midlife, has a vitality and a meaning and a joy of its own that's very different than what midlife is. And so a lot of people get really scared when they start reaching what they intuit to be the end of midlife and older age. And so what they try and do is deny aging and just make older age an extension of midlife. And it doesn't always work very well, because older age has a different quality of facing mortality than midlife had. It's more imminent. We lose those people that we loved in many cases. We have physical issues. We have our identities are often taken away by illness, as in your case, and in my case, I was downsized. So, somehow those things that if you try and hold on to them, then old age you become a victim of it, and it's a very painful experience. And so what we've looked at is the fact that so many mystical and spiritual traditions talk about embracing the shadow, not denying it, saying, okay, yes, so many of us, I'm sure you have listeners that have done yoga and meditated and things like that. And what you're trying to do when you're doing those things is you're trying to, have your ego have a lighter hook into you. You're trying to be less identified with your identity and transcending the materialist definition of what success is. And, it's just ironic. And one of the things that Bob and I discovered together is that older age actually has you do those things organically. And if there's some value to that in almost every mystical and spiritual tradition, there must be some value to older age, and that being a part of it that the rest of society is overlooked.
Yeah. I
I want
mean,
to pick
isn't
up,
it
Pat, on your.
fascinating that we get to talk about this, right, Bob? I mean, so when you listen now, and this is what I'd like to ask you about, if you listen to the pop culture now and you watch, let's just talk about celebrities for a moment. If we watch a little bit of the celebrities that are starting to become, let's say more seasoned, they are getting older. All of a sudden now, you hear people saying, wait a minute, 70 is the new 60, 60 is the new 50, 50 is the new 40, 40 is the new 30, 30 is the new 20, and I'm not even sure where you go after that. But there's this idea and energy around it is a number. Why does it have to become my eulogy?
Mm-hmm. It's not. There's a book title out there called Never Say Die. And I think we keep pushing it back. 30 is the new 20, 40 is the new 30. There's a public television show in Boston here called Aging Backwards. And I never get it. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to. And I keep thinking, what is that? The interesting thing, something you said earlier, and I detect that you have in you that childlikeness that you alluded to about my writing in the book. And I know that from my conversations over these many years now with Carol that there's a childlikeness in her. We both have a bit of impishness and childlikeness, and I think that is the privilege of getting older for me. I don't have to be that straight-laced, rigid, in-role, uniform person I used to be. Right. Now I can be more freely who I am. I can be more humorous. I can be freer to say what's on my mind. I will ask for something, and I will be prepared to take a no if it comes. There's just a considerable amount of freedom. I would not want to be young again. I wouldn't mind having the younger body at times, because I have experienced a number of gimpy parts as a result of getting older, and I still haven't found a good used body part store. But I certainly do value the freedom that I have right now in my now turning 70 this coming year.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, Carol, this is really where we get to, have a little party around this, because something changed for me. I too was downsized, by the way, in 1991, 92. And
you were part of that,
it literally,
that class.
You too? Did that happen to you too?
Well, I've been downsized multiple times.
Well, what I did is I went on to school to study it for 8 years. My goodness, that's therapy. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about with you both is a number of times throughout the book, I think you refer to this in many, many ways. You refer to lessons learned and the dark side and the shadow. And I wanted to get a sense from you. Is it in your discovery, is it that as we get older, the way that we determine how we're going to spend the season years of our life, is it in your opinion that that's going to really be determined on how well we come to terms with our past?
With our past?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely related, yes. I think one of the things that happens in older age, and I know it's my experience, is that I have had to learn how to integrate all aspects of my life. That's the privilege of age, is that I have a chance to be integrated now. It is really the task of the final stage of life is integration, and integration without despairing. And I think that, it's putting together all the regrets I have and not seeing them just as, oh my God, I wish that had happened instead, but to look on it and say, well, because that didn't happen, look at where I am now. For example, I made the decision to enter the Jesuits when I was in graduate school, and it was a very good decision. I had some regrets about leaving, but I felt that it was the right decision to leave. It was the right decision to have entered. When I left, I felt it was the right decision to leave, and being happily married now for 35 years, and having grown more in the context of my marriage than I might have in the context even of the Jesuits, both personally, psychologically, and spiritually. My wife has been one of my great spiritual directors, even though we aren't on the same page in many ways, either religiously or spiritually. I look at that and I think, God, how can I regret, believing at this stage? Because believing led to this, which has just helped me to grow so much bigger and better and to become even more, a human being is who I am, and a little kid.
Yeah,
again.
we talk about it in terms of waking up. See, I stop for a minute because you can spend too much time trying to dwell on and resolve and make peace with the past. I think there is one of the great freedoms of growing older is finally saying, I've done enough introspection, I've done enough making amends. What is here for me now? What is the freedom of my life if I can stop apologizing all the time and just say, wow, I don't owe much to anybody anymore. I am free internally as well as externally. And so, that is the opportunity of growing older that younger people don't ever really get to experience while you're, building your careers and having obligations to your family and things like that. So the very stuff that makes aging shadows, that brings a shadow on it, is also the key to liberation. But you can't get stuck. You still have to be in the present moment.
Yeah. I love that what you wrote in the chapter on what is freedom. And you talk about the illusions and what illusions does aging dispel. And I want to talk about this for a minute, if we could. The whole idea of illusion is really fascinating to me. And what I mean by that is, let me give you an example of an illusion. I went to the movie to see the James Bond movie over the weekend, right? And I want to talk with you about this when we come back. I went to the movie, and we were talking about it, and we were having a little coffee about it afterwards. And somebody said, "Yeah," and it looks like they're going to do another Bond in I can't remember the year, 19, and then they're going to do another one. And somebody in the group says, that saddens me. And I'm like, what is wrong with that? And her answer was, I may not be alive for that. And it never entered my mind. When we come back, I'll talk with both Dr. Robert, Dr. Carol about this illusion. What are some of the illusions we have, and how do we, trap ourselves in our own minds of what I like to call our own minds of darkness. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Tell me something I need to know, then take my breath and never let it go. If you just let me.
A morning filled with dynamic, inspirational music, spirituality, and uplifting messages by TJ Woodward. Come and connect with community conversations and awaken your senses. Awakened Living Sundays with TJ Woodward. Join TJ every Sunday in the San Francisco Bay Area Chapel at Fort Mason and live streaming online 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time. To learn more and access the live stream, visit www.awakenedlivingsf.org. Has asthma or allergies got you singing the raspy blues? Allergy and Asthma Networks is the nation's premier nonprofit patient-centered network of doctors, caregivers, patients, and healthcare professionals who are dedicated to ending death and suffering due to asthma, allergies, and related conditions. Join President and CEO Tanya Winders each month on the Dr. Pat Show to learn more, and visit allergyasthmanetwork.org today. Breathe better together with Allergy and Asthma Network.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that, when run, assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bar session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
If you're one of the millions of Americans suffering from anxiety, you probably know how powerless and out of control this emotion can make you feel. This is why it is so important to remember that anxiety is created by your mind, which means that you can learn to use your mind to uncreate it. Hello, my name is Dr. Friedman Schaub. My award-winning book, The Fear and Anxiety Solution, provides you with a step-by-step breakthrough process to understand and resolve the root causes of your anxiety and build a solid foundation of confidence and inner peace. If you're ready to take your power back, visit thefearandanxietysolution.com. That's thefearandanxietysolution.com, or call 866-903-6463. That's 866-903-MIND.
Give me a reason to believe it. 'Cause if you want to keep me, you gotta got to love me harder. And if you really need me, you gotta to love me harder.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Before we get back to the spirituality of age, A Seeker's Guide for Growing Older, fabulous book, everybody, really. And I have to say to folks, we're touching upon a couple of things here, and I just want to say to you out there that there's so much more in here, and we're trying to get you the nuggets out here to talk about. And for those of you out there, if you've got a question, give us a shout, 1-800-930-2819, or you can send us the question through transformationtalkradio.com or the drpatshow.com. This place for you to pop your question in there. Carol, Robert, can you what's the best website? Should I send people to spiritualityofage.com? Is that the best place to get the book and
it.
more?
Yep. That's the best place, Pat.
Yeah, please, everybody, go to spiritualityofage.com. The book is out, and you can get it there. You can pretty much get it anywhere. But if you go there, there's a lot of other information that I want you guys to know about. If you get there and you want to sign up for the newsletter, want to subscribe to the blog, you want to stay in touch with how to be better than you were the day before, this is the place to go. Okay, so I was saying about this movie experience I had and the little chit chat we had afterwards. And I was sharing during the break. We were talking about, in the end, wow, like when the Avengers movie comes out in 2020, are we even going to be able to, and I think, Robert, you said, are we even going to be able to get there? And the three of us started to laugh. But a lot of people don't laugh about the idea of aging. So is that let me just say this, is the idea of aging and having the fear around it, that is kind of not parallel with the title of the book, The Spirituality of Age, is it? Or is it not? I don't know.
I think Carol alluded to the shadow part.
Yeah.
The darkness. I mean, in Catholic tradition, in all world religions, I think there's a sense of the dark night of the soul. And I think there are times when you face aging and you are fearful, scared, you are perhaps in dread even. So it's not that you can put that aside, but I think what happens, and what I've experienced personally, is that as I've been willing to face it, and as the Buddhists say, lean into the spear tip, which I don't particularly want to sometimes, that actually I discover some new things. Like, one of the grand illusions, you began saying something about that, Pat. Yeah. One of the grand illusions that is assailed by aging is immortality. Gonzo, right? You are mortal. And I think when you face your mortality, then you can really grasp what you've got is right now. And you live that to the full. You live that as fully as you can. Your precious and wild life, you live it. And if you think you've got forever, you take for granted the moments in between, the footsteps that you just took, the birds that are sunning themselves, the beautiful leaves here in Boston, as the autumn has set in considerably. We miss those things, and the illusion has to break, has to go. The illusions can be good up to a point. Like love is an illusion.
I was going to say that, the flip side, Bob and I hate being the bearers of the message that you have to accept death and dying. I wish that wasn't our primary message. But what we have discovered, both of us, is that the flip side is if you don't accept death and dying, then you get trapped in this forever young thinking. And since your body is aging, and since you are losing friends and coming up against ageism and things like that, if you think you ought to be forever young and are trying to hold on to that, and you're up against this dissonance, you end up either going into denial, and there's an awful lot of older people who will overdrink, use drugs, and there's also another way of being in denial of just feeling like you have to stay young all the time by, starting a new career and perhaps, keep busy all the time. And, Bob and I say, could you imagine if you saw an old woman on a bench and she was just sitting there kind of staring out into space, what would you think? Would you want to give her a makeover? Would you feel sorry for her? Would you want to call social services? Because what Bob and I have discovered is that by being willing to face mortality and giving ourselves the freedom to not be living up to society's expectations, you can be sitting on that bench, and that old woman might be having, I'm not saying she is, but I'm saying there's a chance she's having a transcendent experience beyond anything any of us have ever experienced.
Yeah, I have to tell you, here's what I love about this conversation, and I would love to ask both of you to comment on this. I've looked back at some of this, and in reading your book, I did a little sanity check in a couple of places here. You asked some really, really powerful questions. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about, I think one of the questions is, and I love the way you two answer the questions, and I didn't say that about the book. What happens in the book, you get a question like this: what do you especially value about yourself? And then Bob says what he values, and then the same question for Carol, and Carol says that, and this is what I love. And so what happens with this is we get to ask ourselves these questions. Who has believed in you even when you did not? I think that the way that you've written these books, this book, and the questions you are asking are so powerful in discovering where we even are around the spiritual of aging and what we even think about in our own lives. Because I'll tell you, Bob and Carol, we do not ask ourselves these questions. We do not ask ourselves these questions. But what is it in the questions and how we look at them that guide us to what you talk about, the path of freedom? What is it about the format of asking these questions that will help us get to that place of acceptance?
I think what we try to do, Pat, is we try to get we all want answers, and people come to me as a psychologist, but they say, well, you're the expert, tell me. And I say, if you're looking for someone who has all the answers for you, I'm not the person. What I'm good at is asking questions, not asking questions, but helping you form your own questions. And I think that's what Carol and I try to do. We grapple with these 25 questions, and we show you, we're trying to be self-disclosing about how we have grappled with them. And it's not over. We haven't finalized our answers. The book is finalized. But the questioning continues to go on for both of us. And who knows where I'll be in a year on some of these issues. I may be, more hopeful even than now. I may be less hopeful than now. But I'm going to continue to wrestle with the question because that is what's most important. Continue to read the movements in my own inner life and see why I'm sad, why I'm happy, joyful, why I'm forgiving, why I'm not. It's an ongoing process to really, in a sense, become more who I am, and to have some healing, within myself of all these disparate parts, the good, the bad, the ugly pieces of myself. That's what it's about.
Well, there is a question I want to ask both of you, and if we could talk about it. And it's a question in the book. It's question 25. And the question really for all of us is, and it's in the book, folks, if you're just tuning in, how can spiritual maturity equip us to face our unknowns? I love this question. And it is a question that we do not contemplate And I would love for you both to share what you said about this. You know, how can spiritual maturity equip us to face our unknowns? Because there are unknowns all along the way. And Carol, you and I talked about this before. I had no idea after 24 and a half years of working for the same company that I would end up on the end of a downsizing event. That is an unknown. So how does spirituality equip us or not?
Well, you know, I mean, the good thing is that we have dress rehearsals. So getting downsized, getting ill, getting divorced, those things that happen to people as we're going through, you know, youth and midlife that we think are such tragedies, you know, and we have to struggle to overcome those kinds of things. Those people actually have a better time with older age. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I look at the whole of my life, if there was one point in my life where I would like to have my spirit be soaring, it would be at the end, right? I mean, wouldn't you like that to look forward to? And every time we understand that we are not in control, we're not calling the shots, and we have to dig deeper to find out what we really believe. Is there a higher power? Do we believe in God? Are we alone? If we get sick, does that mean we've failed? All those kinds of questions that don't really get talked about on a daily basis. We've brought forward in this book and are just really excited to hear from people like you and our readers that it engenders conversation on a deeper level and also takes grappling with older age out of the secret recesses of, you know, I have failed, it's me alone. I've done something wrong because I've gotten older. You know, we're saying, oh my God, there's this whole consciousness movement. We call it conscious aging. And there's a whole generation of people of which we are part of, and you are too, obviously. There's a bunch of us that are getting old at the same time, and we're doing it from this almost out of a curiosity and a sense of adventure and the desire to see it through fresh eyes. And I mean, that's the excitement about my relationship with Bob, and then now we're talking to you and at our website and various, when we give retreats and things. There's just a lot of us that are waking up at the same time.
We are waking up, and, you know, I wanted to talk with you about this when we come back, and that is this idea that, you know, as we do age, you know, there is or could be a correlation between aging and inspiration. And, you know, what is it about the way we think about ourselves aging that would either empower us to be inspired and perhaps take an inspired action or not? You know, what is that happens sometimes? I don't know if I'm sure you've heard this more times than not, and I've seen people experience this. They work a job most of their lives, they retire, and within a year they're gone. And what is it about the way we make transitions in life that will either open the door to finishing this off inspired or not? Let's take a short break, everyone. We'll be right back. The Spirituality of Age. Yeah, Dr. Robert Weber, Dr. Carol Orsborn. We'll be right back.
We go hide away in daylight. We go undercover, wait up the sun. Got a secret side in plain sight. Where the streets are empty, that's where we run.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Pat. Have you ever noticed that this reality doesn't actually work in a way that helps you thrive? I'm thrilled to announce that one of my good friends and colleagues, Dr. Glenna Rice, is bringing the incredible world of Access Consciousness to Seattle this December. You can register and learn more for the course that's coming up on December 4th by visiting drglennaevents.com. And when you're there, you're also going to find another event coming up in January that Gary Douglas is doing himself. So register now and wonder no more.
Awaken to your radiant, authentic self. For over 15 years, Soul Purpose Advocate Nancy Monson has been focused on leading change in the lives of those looking to live their true purpose. She is devoted to supporting people in living a soul-directed life every day. Let Nancy help you overcome fear, worry, and doubt. Visit everydayspirituality.com to learn how Nancy can be your soul purpose advocate.
A shift is happening. Join Lynn Brown, host of Get Into It, for a workshop that will open you up to your full potential. Sunday, November 22nd, 1 to 3 p.m. at the Maya Whole Health Center in Renton. Lynn will show you how to see and feel auras, try out your own intuitive abilities, and participate in deep healing meditation to create ease during this time. To learn more and register, email lynn@ruintuit.com. That's letter R, letter U, intuit.com.
We Carry the Light with host Dr. Susan Allison is the show that inspires you to find the light within and shine your light in the world. You'll hear from guests who model how to be the highest, brightest, most evolved, fulfilled, and conscious humans possible. Tune in each Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, on TransformationTalkRadio.com, and let Dr. Susan help you discover that you carry the unique light that only you can shine.
How confident do you feel about your retirement? Ask Ameriprise financial advisor Jeff Packman about the exclusive Confident Retirement Approach. Together, you and Jeff can break down retirement planning step by step to get to the real answers you need. Call Jeff Packman, financial advisor, today at 425-453-0272. Office is located at 601 108th Avenue Northeast, Suite 1800 in Bellevue, Washington, 98004. The Confident Retirement Approach is not a guarantee of future financial results. Investment advisory products and services are made available through Ameriprise Financial Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Ameriprise Financial Services Incorporated, member of FINRA and SIPC.
Let the transition begin. Tune in to the hit show, Majestic Insights Radio, Success for Life's Transitions, with host Carrie Keith. Carrie is a gifted intuitive coach, healer, and teacher who will lead you through her empowering techniques of ancient wisdom and awareness so you can live your happiest, healthiest, and most vibrant life. Let Carrie teach you the tools of transformation that will help you experience success for all of life's transitions. To learn more about Carrie, visit www.majesticinsights.com.
It's so great to have you here. It's so great to have Robert and Carol joining me here today. And the book is fabulous, The Spirituality of Aging. The questions are really thought-provoking. I mean, you know, it's the question that I mentioned before we went to break, and we're going to chat about it for a little bit here. But there are many, many questions. And thank you both for joining me here today. And I just want to tell everybody, if you want to find out more about the spirituality of age, then go to thespiritualityofage.com. And this is the book titled The Spirituality of Age, A Seeker's Guide to Growing Older. And there's lots of information here. Certainly you can get a copy of the book. You can sign up for the blog and whatever else they're doing. Hey, thank you both. So it's question 25, right? So like, how can spiritual maturity equip us to face our unknowns? Okay, this is a really interesting question. Because I think that, you know, people can go in a couple of different ways on this. And then there's a quote under this, Carol, under your answer. And it says, pain can make a whole winter bright, like fever force us to live deep and hard. It says, pain can make a whole winter bright, like fever, force us to live deep and hard. And I'll tell you, I read that thing like a million times. I read that, and it's May Sarton whose quote that is, and I read that over and over and over again. And then you go on to tell your story as part of it. So I'd like to hear from each of you about this interesting question. Fascinating question, isn't it? And by the way, out of what I could gather from this, it's actually for you, Carol. Now this is just me. I think it has one of your longest answers.
Well, it was the last question in the book, and I just wanted to blurt out everything else, that I have to say. I went into aging kicking and screaming and surprised myself because I consider myself to be a spiritual person and have done a lot of personal growth work and transformative work over the years. Like you, I faced a serious illness. In my case, it was breast cancer when I was, I guess it was almost 18 or 19 years ago. So I had to ask myself the question, at that point in my life, I thought I had made peace with death and dying. And yet here when I in my case, I turned 63 and some things happened, the downsizing and some rudeness on the behalf of young people who considered me invisible, things like that, where I got upset all over again on an even deeper level. And I had to think, what was the difference? And I realized that when you have a serious illness, you can pray for recovery, and I did. And I hoped and I prayed that I would heal and be able to kick the cancer, and I did. But when I turned 63, all of a sudden I realized I can pray all I want. I am not going to cure myself of aging. Or if I did, I'd be the very first one in history. And I think that's the moment. You keep talking about spiritual maturity. Somebody once said the best definition of when you know that you're a grown-up is when you realize that mortality is really, really real, and that it does deepen your understanding and your questions. And I would say that Bob and I are seekers, but we're also finders. Because I mentioned I went kicking and screaming into this dark, dark passage. And the one thing I'd like to say from this whole conversation that I don't think has been talked about enough, which is that there is a transition. There is a passage between the height of midlife, the height of our careers, having children in the house, all that stuff. There is a transition between that and older age when those things are not functioning in the same way that they used to for you. And if you are not afraid of that passage, if you go into it willing to find out what's the meat here, is there a gift or deeper meaning? Is there something here? And it takes time and it takes patience, because each one of these questions, we didn't have immediate answers. We didn't really know what the meaning of our old age was going to be. We didn't know how we were going to relate to our lives and each other and the world. It's been a process. Even writing the book was 3 or 4 years. So it's not something you snap your fingers and suddenly, I'm so happy to be old. It's not like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, I'm glad you brought that up, because it isn't like a light switch.
No.
Okay. And though our society and our pop culture, if you ever watch, any of the commercials on TV, right? It's like, oh my goodness, now I'm old. I'm going to need this, that, the other drug, this, that for, in order to have great sex. I'm going to need this, that. It's like, wait a minute. I was then and now I'm now. And it is like a light switch. But I'm so glad you pointed out that, there is this transition. Bob, I wanted to ask you about this same question and what transition looked like for you.
Well, the light switch image is interesting because I would say it is somewhat like a light switch, but not the standard, flip on, flip off. More like
it's a dimmer.
It's exactly. You start off in the dark. When you're looking at age, I think it's like dark in here, and then little by little, kind of like when I had my cataract surgery. I thought, oh God, I'm old now. That's what only old people have cataract surgery. And then what I discovered was I could see things I had never seen so well ever before, though I had 20/20 vision in my life. And I could see colors that I could never imagine were so bright and intense as they actually are. Because despite my good eyes as a youngster, it didn't have what the cataract surgery did. And I think that the spiritual maturity is like having a good cataract surgery. All of a sudden you can see what's going on much more clearly. I think in my answer to that question about spiritual maturity, I spoke about charismatic. I said, when I was younger, I wanted to be a charismatic. I wanted people to say, hey, that Bob Weber, he's a great athlete, or he's a great scholar, or he's a great friend, or he's this or that, all the wonderful gifts. And now what I realize is that at this age, I desire more to be what I call a prismatic. I've lived this life, and it's matured like a good wine. You pick up a good wine, you sniff it, you look at it, you taste it, you feel the taste, you feel the texture, and then you clink your glasses to celebrate the moment so you get all 5 senses in. But I think what's happened is now I think the life I've lived comes through me, and I refract it as a spectrum. So my spectrum is very much the same as everyone else's in terms of, the color ranges from ultraviolet to infrared, but mine is unique, and yours, Pat, and yours, Carol, is unique as well. And that's what I want to radiate to the world. I want people to look at the way I'm living, seeing the life I've lived and its integration coming through me as the light as being sort of life, and then refracted, and giving people some perspective, courage, hope, challenge, whatever it is. That's, to me, what spiritual maturity does. It's not out there, banging people over the head, but it's just saying, here's me. Here's my life. In not in summary, but in ongoing summarization. And may you learn something from it. That's what our hope is for this book, is that people will look at us and say, oh, I've got questions too, and there's still more to learn.
Well, I have to thank both of you for today, and I know that you are very busy in talking about the book. I want to thank you for spending this time with us today. I want to thank you for the work that you do. I want to thank you for the questions that you've now given all of us to ponder, and it is an amazing book. It's one of these books that I'm going to read over and over and over again, because I will tell you, the honest truth for me is some of these questions are a little bit daunting and make me a little bit afraid. Thank you both for joining me here today.
What an honor. Thanks, Pat.
Yes. Thank you, Pat.
All right, for everybody out there, spiritualityofage.com is the website. The book is fabulous. It is a fabulous gift for you. It's a fabulous gift for you to share with your partner and loved ones. And it is an amazing door opener to explore your own spirituality, as many of us take that journey, that dimmer switch, light switch on to a brighter future of aging. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.